People think I'm so crazy, but we're just going green. People think we're so crazy, but we're just going green. People think that we're so crazy, we're just going green. People think that we're so crazy, we're just going green.
And a very good afternoon, Phuket. This is Nick Anthony, and it is indeed the Going Green Show. It's a beautiful sunny afternoon out there, and the wave and the oceans are looking absolutely spectacular. I was down at Surin Beach this morning, and indeed it's looking very clean. There was no plastic on the beaches, and we're at Phuket looking pretty good, I must say. Give yourselves a pat on the back. We've got Phuket looking this year much better than it has in the past, particularly the trash collection, the anti-littering that's taking place, and the regular roadside cleanings. In particular, thanks there to the health office here on Phuket for working with the Orbitor and the local communities in making our local communities cleaner. By cleaner, that also reduces dengue fever, as water catches in plastic trash in particular, and you get increased mosquitoes, thereby increased dengue fever. So keeping it clean means also less mosquitoes. Well, let's take a look at a few things that we're going to be talking about today. Firstly, on the weather front, we'll be talking about Australia, where not only did they have the hottest January ever, but at the end of it, a place like Gladstone up in Queensland received 32 inches of rainfall in 4 days. That's 820 millimetres. And that actually has exceeded its previous record for a whole month and is more than the annual rainfall recorded in 2011 or in 2012 in just 4 days. Of course, massive flooding, and particularly after the fires. So our thoughts and prayers go up to the people in Gladstone, and I hope you're recovering. Seems like the Australian problems that they've had over the last 30 days are subsiding. In other news, we're going to be looking at Beijing on the back of what's happening with very bad air pollution, and one very enterprising gentleman is now selling clean air in a can, and apparently has sold 2 million cans over the last 2 weeks alone. In international news, we'll be looking at the ERI, which is an international body that have a 13th Sustainable Development Summit taking place this week in Delhi. It's a lot of US gazing and some rhetoric on the back of the US comments last week by President Barack Obama. However, it seems that it's more discussion, and we'll take a look really at what the Americans are doing as opposed to what they're talking about. In the newspaper for the Phuket News this weekend, there's a great article on page 6 on lifestyle by Kanak Wan from Seek. She talks about the indicators that have been developed over the last 12 months, and in specific talks about the nature indicators. So I'll talk a little bit about those and how they can be assessed and how they can benefit a stronger and more sustainable island. Greece is burning. Why? They're in massive austerity. Countries eventually bankrupt, and people don't have enough money to pay for electricity, so instead they're burning everything. Furniture, walls, chopping down all of the trees. It's a conservation nightmare at the moment, particularly in Athens. And take a look at that. And lastly, Laguna have their turtle release this next Friday. That's Friday the 8th. You can go down there at 5:30 p.m. You can pay 2,000 baht to get a turtle to release into the ocean, and all of those proceeds will go to the PMBC. I had the pleasure of going down to Panwa on Thursday with Sean Panton from Seek and from the JW Marriott, and together we looked at the turtle facilities down in PMBC with a view to creating a new turtle facility up in the north. So very exciting things and great work they're doing down there with the turtles. Indeed, very sad. If you do go down, there's some pens down by the water, and there's around 15 wonderful old turtles, maybe 10, 12, 15 years old, big old turtles, and unfortunately many of them had their flippers taken off from being caught in nets or have had some sort of injury, either a broken shell or a gash from a speedboat, and so they're all recovering. The ones they can release, of course, they do. However, once a turtle has lost its flipper, then it's very limited. So they do have a rehabilitation facility, but unfortunately we're looking for homes for those beautiful turtles.
This is Going Green with Nick Anthony on Live 89.5.
Welcome back to Going Green, show number 62. And today we're looking at air pollution in Beijing after what has been a shocking month. The good news is that the air actually cleared yesterday for what is the first time now in nearly 4 weeks. And there was a further warning on Wednesday from the government to the 20 million people that this would now be the last, they think, of this really bad pollution, with winds picking up and also pollution measures now slightly better in hand. However, what we saw level in excess of 700, and by some counts, according to the US Embassy, their own readings went above 800 PMI. That's a measurement of how many particles are in the air, and it's a measurement called the PM 2.5, which refers to the particle size. Well, in response to that, a fellow called Chen Guang Lu has decided that he's going to go out and he's going to sell canned fresh air. What a fantastic idea, he figures. Well, he is eccentric, he is a millionaire, and he is a philanthropist. And he's known as much for his wacky charitable endeavors as for really his generous humanitarian deeds. But aside from making a killing in his canned fresh air business, which he just started, all of which is being donated to charities, he's also bringing a great deal of attention to what is a worsening problem in China. Every day in China they're inhaling the exhaust fumes of many cars, and now they have pollution-free air to sell. In Europe, actually Athens in Greece is having exactly the same problem, and it's for a slightly different reason. It's a spectre, and it's now haunting Greece. It leers over its rooftops, it invades lungs, and nearly glows in the night. And in Greece, it's smoke. Particularly smoke from fire that is used to warm the homes of Greek families too poor to afford heat in any other way. As a result, being cut from the mountains surrounding Athens, charred in the stoves and fireplaces of middle-class homes, and being blown through their chimneys, the unnatural cloud hovers over the capital city and has become a bleak metaphor for one of the worst economic depressions in modern European history. It's the smog of austerity. Greece is literally breathing in the fumes of its recession. Well, Greek unemployment is the highest in the developed world. The country's GDP faces the worst peacetime contraction of any non-communist European country since the 19th century. And even workers with jobs often have to deal with delayed payments, furloughs, and lower take-home pay due to higher taxes. So many families have made an understandable calculus. From now on, we'll make our own heat with wood, a match, and a fireplace. Summer smog is common in Athens, when vehicle fumes collect in the hot, still air over the city. But this is the first incidence in recent memory of winter smog, when families lighting fires to keep warm in January, when the temperature at night can drop into the low 40s Fahrenheit. It's present everywhere in the wider area of Athens, said an English teacher. The phenomenon is reportedly worst in big cities with more than 4 million inhabitants. However, it is also attacking other cities. And more recently this year in Greece, with heavy smog over Athens as a result of all of the people having to resort to burning furniture, burning walls, burning whatever they can, rather than paying money to get electricity. Now, let's take a listen at a video from the Huffington Post Live. This is about a Chinese entrepreneur, Chen Guangbao, the eccentric millionaire philanthropist who is making killing in his canned fresh air business venture. Here we go. Take a listen to this. I'm not doing very well tonight on my video. I'll have to come back again, but in the meanwhile, I'm going to move straight through to the next piece, which is talking about a development summit that's taking place in Delhi. This is the 13th annual Sustainable Development Summit being run, whose goal is to tackle resource efficiency. Well, around the world, leaders have pointed to ways a changing climate is already affecting their nations. We know well about places like the Seychelles and Kiribati, for example, down in the Pacific, where the president told his delegates that their nation is experiencing unprecedented coastal erosion and forcing some communities to relocate. Same thing in the Seychelles. They have actually recent flooding there, so they have an emergency. And the Maldives, of course, major problems, and their Minister for Environment told the panel that their own extreme weather patterns are now common. They added that dependence on unsustainable fossil fuel-based energy increases global warming and threatens climate security, which in turn affects our biodiversity, food and water security through droughts, floods, and extreme weather events. Well, as many nations brace for worsening effects of climate change, the intransience of the US has sparked some concern. Kiribati's president told the Huffington Post that the United States should come to the party. They should relax and not be so scared to talk about climate change. It's a reality of this world. It's our creation, perhaps their creation more than ours. So we should deal with this monster we've released. Many leaders praised Barack Obama for focusing on climate change in his second inaugural address, something we played last week on the Going Green show. However, an animated presentation by the former Guyana president jolted attendees from their post-lunch food comas. Of course, I welcome, said the British Deputy Prime Minister Lord John Prescott. Of course, I welcome what President Obama said, that now he recognizes the weather. But the statement he made, I read it in his first inauguration. It was good then, but nothing happened. And as the New York Times columnist Thomas Friedman proclaimed during one session, think how crazy that is. We get excited that a Democratic president once every 4 years uses the term climate change. How backwards we've gone. Quebec's premier found Obama's speech a nice surprise, and he said that the situation in the U.S. is quite discouraging. A former Florida governor, Charlie Crist, identified one challenge and said that we don't do well with big ideas that need big solutions. We're much more comfortable with incremental change, things that we can get our arms around. Well, the global commitment required to tackle climate change is way outside our comfort zone. That's coming from the former Florida governor. So things are looking pretty tough. But still, there are challenges out there. These talks are going on, and indeed some countries doing better. And here in Thailand, we continue to try to pursue a sustainable future. Well, if someone were to tell you that you could make money out of clean air, you would probably think they're absolutely crazy. But now I'm going to play this clip for you of a fellow called Chen Guangbao, who's a Beijing philanthropist, millionaire, and is rather eccentric. And this fellow has sold now 8 million cans of fresh air just over the last 10 days alone, as the Beijing air pollution gets worse and worse. It's sold at 80 yuan a can, 5 Chinese yuan a can, which is equivalent of about 80 cents, or at about 25 baht. Let's have a listen, see what he has to say. This is from the Huffington Post Live.
This video from across the ocean, courtesy of NBC News, is also trending today. Check this out.
And to combat the smog, a Chinese multimillionaire is selling canned air. He made his fortune in the recycling business, and for the past 2 weeks, he and his colleagues have taken to the streets of Beijing to give away hundreds of cans of fresh air, purportedly collected from far-flung and pristine regions of China. People can also purchase more so-called fresh air if they want it.
So here's the deal, guys.
So sad, by the way.
It's terrible.
Purchase fresh air.
It's terrible. By the way, it's like there are oxygen bars, all kinds of things like that. But let me tell you about this. Chen's a millionaire, and he's evidently one of China's richest individuals. He began selling this canned fresh air in response to the air pollution in Beijing. When the Olympics were there, we heard a lot about that. It comes in a lot of flavors. It's got pristine Tibet, whatever that means, and post-industrial Taiwan as another flavor. The air is being sold for 5 Chinese yuan a can, 80 cents a can, and China Times reported that Chen has sold more than 8 million cans of fresh air over the past 10 days, and it's been really poor air quality recently, so residents of several cities there, including Beijing, had to get protection indoors.
So those are their windows, they're just having fresh air. I'm sorry, it's not funny, but it's absurd.
I'm having another
So fresh air, this is where we're going. This is what we're coming to in today's society.
That's indeed it. That's where the world is coming to, particularly if you're living in Beijing. And we hope that the people of Beijing, that this problem is resolved. There we are. This is Nick Anthony. We're on the Going Green show, and I'm going to talk for a minute about some news here in Phuket. We have seen a great deal of enthusiasm in Patong in particular towards a curbside recycling scheme. And we are progressing with the local municipality an idea of trying to create curbside recycling pickups for the local community. Indeed, we're discussing this also in places like Kamala Beach, as well as down in Kata Karon, and also up in Mai Khao. And it's only a matter of time, and hopefully this is fairly short, until we actually get curbside recycling going. The government also is expected to step up and start a litter campaign. We saw in places like Australia in the early 1980s, people used to throw all the trash out of their cars, and it wasn't until the government started a litter campaign in about 1983 and 1984 that really this roadside litter problem was solved. And since then, it's been a very effective campaign. So good luck with the local government in rolling that out and in helping people to become educated about why, indeed, our island should be maintained. Reminder, February the 8th, that's this Friday coming up, there's a turtle release, a sunset sea turtle release program. That's at 5:30 p.m. down at Angsana Laguna. It costs 2,000 baht as a donation to the Phuket Marine Biological Centre to release a turtle, and that includes 2 drinks. It's 5:30 on Friday. Put that down on your BlackBerry, on your diary, and go down and release some turtles. It's a great program. I did have the pleasure to go down on Thursday with Sean Panton from the Jetaway Marriott, and we took a look at the turtle facilities down there. They're releasing around 250 sea turtles a year through their breeding program. They have an extensive a series of tanks where baby turtles come in. They're able to then grow to 1 month, get a little bit bigger. The shells get harder, and then they move into a bigger tank with their brothers and sisters. They stay there till they're about 8 months, and they go into another slightly bigger tank. And at 1 year old, that's when they get released. So the turtles that will be released next Friday will all be 1 year old turtles, and they're olive Ridley turtles, which have got beautiful shells. This is Nick Anthony. You're listening to The Going Green Show. Stay tuned.
People think I'm so crazy, but we're just going green. People think we're so crazy, but we're just going green. People think that we're so crazy, we're just going green. People think that we're so crazy, we're just going green.
I do hope you're enjoying a sunny afternoon out there. It's a beautiful one, so do make sure you get into the ocean, have a swim, and look after Phuket as sustainably as we can. Well, as part of this sustainability drive on Phuket, Seek, which is a local NGO that was formed last year, you can check out the website. It's myseek.org, myseek.org. And on that is a lot of information about what's happening both locally and internationally, the challenges that we face, and solutions that you can do, whether at home, at the office, or if you're a large hotel, or indeed a residential community, what you can do to pull them all together and to hopefully make your environments better. Seek have been hosting in 2012 a number of stakeholder meetings where they brought people together from all parts of the community, private sector, the government sector, as well as the NGOs. And they discussed the future of Phuket, looked at it from a variety of aspects. There's a group called the Compass Group that use a compass approach. It's called the Atkinson Group, that use the compass approach to study the different impacts on a society. And it comes in the form of N for nature, north for nature, E for economy, the east for economy, south for society, and the west for well-being. And you use these 4 compass points to balance the direction that you want the community to go in. And in this case, we've studied Phuket. And in today's newspaper, in this weekend's Phuket News, on page 6 of the lifestyle section, is a very good article by Kun Kanokwan from Seek. She's a Thai ranger based now here on Phuket and is working full-time on this NGO. And she writes for the newspaper in what we call the Thai eye. She gives a Thai perspective to the news, discusses local events, local actions, and has been cooperating with Seek and coordinating with people like the IUCN, Atkinson Group, and others, including the Thai Environment Institute, to come up with a plan. And in today's paper, we have a section there, a full-page article about finding the right direction. What direction does Phuket want to take? And in this first article on these compass indicators, the discussion has been on the nature aspect. And there are 7 priority areas that nature needs to be addressed on Phuket to be driven towards a sustainable future. The first is coastal environment quality, and the principal aspect is coastal management. Our economy is primarily based on tourism, and almost all tourists come to Phuket for its white sand beaches and clean, aqua, warm, blue waters. Both of these variables are directly influenced by the coastal management, which ranges from coastal development planning, pollution, construction law, including enforcement, business licensing, and the density of vendors, litter management, etc. If this variable continues to deteriorate, then Phuket loses its status as a world-class island beach tourist destination, especially now with the development of Cambodia's coastal areas and the opening of Myanmar, both of which will provide competition for Phuket in the future. Our reputation is built here, and our reputation stands on the quality of our beaches and on the quality of our water. There are two proposed study indicators that will be used to look at the coastal environment quality. One is a marine water quality index, and the second a beach quality index. These indicators now are going to be expanded out into individual sections with specific strategies on how to achieve the indicator results. So looking at the marine water quality index, for example, there will be water testing on the klongs coming into the west coast of Phuket. Those figures hopefully are going to be reduced through pollution control, through awareness, through education, and through working with the local operators to help to fix their water flows, their pollution issues, and particularly their waste management issues. So that's one example, for example, on the Marine Water Quality Index, how this SEEK sustainability plan will benefit local areas. The second area on nature that is going to be studied is the ecosystem services, and it's the protection of unnatural areas. Well, ecosystem services is a word and is a concept that we need, but very much take for granted, as we never really cost account for ecosystems, i.e. we expect clean water, we expect clean air, we expect nutrient cycling, and we expect functioning of the water cycle. We expect shade, we expect beauty, and we expect a place for outdoor recreation. But we behave as if these services are free. Thus, as they are free, we abuse them. However, we cannot enjoy a healthy and good quality of life or even prosperous business without these services. But nowadays, they are primarily delivered from protected areas like national parks, watershed protection areas, conservation forests, etc. Thus, it is imperative that Phuket protests against any encroachment on the protected areas that are already established, as it is almost impossible to restore them once they are destroyed. The proposed indicators here is to study the extent of encroachment measured in Ryan hectares of national park and other protected areas. And indeed we've seen Kun Damrong from the National Park Service, who's now retired, leading an investigation into the protection of natural areas, and particularly a widespread investigation here on Phuket. This is Nick Anthony, listening to The Going Green Show. I'm talking about indicators with respect to nature and how Phuket is planning on becoming a more sustainable place in the future. And if you look at page 6 on this weekend's edition of the Phuket News, you'll find out what I'm talking about, and specifically how it pertains to Phuket's future.
This is Going Green on Live 89.5.
Welcome back, show number 62. Tonight I'm talking about finding the right direction, finding the balance that Phuket needs so badly. And we're talking about sustainability, and we're talking about our future. On page 6 of the lifestyle section in this weekend's Phuket News paper, there is a very good article written by Kun Nok from SEEK talking about the indicators that we're going to be using to really study Phuket from the perspective of where we are today and where we need to be in the future. And it's a very tight, numbers-based program that is going to be made public in terms of its information, and the results will be working with directly local businesses like Tesco, 7-Eleven, big hotels, whether it be the Jetaway Marriott or Trisara or the Hilton, etc., and at the same time working with local communities, as SEEK does very well, particularly right now places like Bang Tao, up in Mai Khao, working in Patong with the municipality, and indeed working down in the south. We just talked about two of the indicators, and that was the coastal environment quality, ensuring that really our beaches and our sand are pristine. Otherwise, without that, we don't have a reputation. Second is ecosystem services, and really the protection of natural areas and studying the extent of encroachment. The third aspect that the indicators will be focusing on is solid waste and garbage. Of course, we are still amidst a litter and trash crisis. There was a great deal of promotion in 2012 as Phuket Green Island, with the goals of becoming a sustainable low-carbon island. However, we are still facing a crisis of overcapacity, and many decades of over-exploitation, natural area degradation, and need to aggressively pursue both short and long-term goals to ensure Phuket is sustainable. The fourth aspect of these indicators that we've been studying and are looking to provide some indicators to check is the marine environment, and specifically looking at the health of the coral reef. There is a healthy coral index, which will consist of aggregated measurements of, for example, coral diversity, coral coverage, fish diversity, bleaching, and sedimentation. And we've been working with people like Seabees Diving to help to create this, and indeed Seabees have been very active in helping to create clean reefs around Phuket, and very importantly working with the dive community to bring that community together, also for a better island. Section 6 of these indicators is climate change, and specifically looking at carbon emissions and how that relates back to our island. So we measure our own carbon emission from electricity consumption, transportation, and indeed waste incineration. And lastly, looking at these nature indicators, the other aspect that's very important to study and to check is our own biodiversity. Imagine a Phuket with no birds, no monkeys, frogs, lizards, or fish. Biodiversity is crucial to our life here on Phuket and also to our tourism industry. Tourists who come for diving and snorkeling do not come to see an empty sea. And the same can be said for the forest areas of the island that are also tourist sites. Food security and its implications to a large segment of the local economy is another reason that this area aspect is so important for the nature compass point for Phuket sustainability. The indicator specifically for biodiversity is what's called the Living Planet Index. It's an aggregate measure of vertebrate species populations in three categories: terrestrial, marine, freshwater. It includes fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals. And hopefully that's an index there on the Living Planet Index where indeed we can help to make that arise. Do stay tuned. This is Nick Anthony, and a big thanks for tuning in today on this show number 62. We also want to thank the Foundation for that nice message about Phuket, about recycling, and indeed plastic does take hundreds of years for it to degrade. So, of course, the first step is to always be aware, and to be aware of your actions. Think about your actions. Refuse single-use plastic bags, straws, and polystyrene. Reduce your waste and reduce energy use. And then reuse what you can, including composting. From then, please recycle as much of what's left as is possible. Be responsible to both Phuket, to our island, and also be Phuket to our be responsible to our planet. And I do ask you to find your way to tell others. Join something like the Kamala Green Club on Facebook. You can also join Seek at myseek.org. Click also on Facebook, or there you can join me on Twitter and follow me under Indigo Nick. This is Nick Anthony signing out for this fine Saturday, the 2nd of February. Have a wonderful weekend.